Welcome back to Blockchain Pill. My name is Alex, and today we'll talk with two of the co-founders of Hot or Not. Hot or Not, for the people that are new to the ICP ecosystem or who have been living under a rock, is a TikTok-like platform built entirely on-chain that will revolutionize the way you spend your time on social media. There has been some drama in the ICP community regarding Hot or Not, so at the end of this episode, after we learn more about the DApp and the progress that they have made, we'll ask the team some of the questions that you asked in our Twitter post. I really recommend you watch the whole video because it's packed with information about their upcoming plans, what they've been up to, and their vision about Hot or Not, and how this is going to be one of the biggest social media platforms in the world, not just in Web3. So with that said, let's jump straight into the video. It's been about 4 months since we had the last podcast, and you're not alone this time. So I want to start with a brief introduction for both of you. Tell our viewers who you are and, what's your background and what you guys are doing for Hot or Not.
Thank you so much, Alex, for taking our time today again for this wonderful podcast. The last time you were here, we got some wonderful response from our community members, and it's been always amazing, talking to you on and off end. So I'm Rishi. I'm one of the co-founders at Hot or Not. Hot or Not will soon go into the rebrand, so we'll be another brand soon, which we'll disclose, I think, in the next couple of weeks. A little bit about myself. I started off my career as a software engineer, worked for around 4 to 5 years as a software developer across multiple US organizations before pursuing my management studies in a couple of countries. So pursued my management studies in Belgium, Brussels, and the part of the program was also in Dubai. And after that, jumped the ship, started a string of ventures. This is my third venture, along with the same co-founding team. Shoikat is again one of our co-founders. He'll also give a brief introduction about himself, and then we have Utkarsh as well. So this is our third venture together. We have already gotten an exit in one of our first ventures. The second venture we did not continue with, and hence we are here. It's been close to 3 years since we have been working on Hot or Not and have been one of the early movers across the ICP space, and did our SNS, which is the ICO in the crypto space, around 6 to 7 months back. We had a podcast just around 3 to 4 months back. We talked about the SNS and quite a few things which had happened until then. And today we'll cover whatsoever has happened over the last 4 to 6 months since the previous podcast, and again give you an overview of what the vision and the roadmap is for Hot or Not.
Absolutely. So once again, welcome and thank you for being here. And also Shoikat, thank you very much for tuning in. It's a pleasure to meet you. Tell us a little bit about you and what you are doing at Hot or Not.
Yep. Hey, Alex. This is first time for us meeting, but super happy to be here. I am mostly the product and engineering guy at Hot or Not. So essentially, anything to do with product engineering, anything that's breaking or anything that's working super well, I'm the person that you need to talk to. I have a background in computer science, so I did my engineering in computer science. Subsequently, I worked as a software engineer for around 2 years. Post which I was not sure if I liked software that much, so I went into MBA. I did my MBA in marketing, post which again I sort of realized that I like both marketing and software. So here I am. So I mostly worked as a product manager for around 2.5 years, post which I think I just jumped into entrepreneurship. Met Rishi, we've been here for I think around 5 to 6 years together, out of which I think we've been here in the ICO ecosystem for around 3 to 4 years.
It is great to have an app like Hot or Not on the Internet Computer Protocol, and I'm curious to find out, how did you decide to start Hot or Not on the Internet Computer Protocol? Like, what are the advantages that ICP has over all other ecosystems? Like, why was it not possible to have it built on Ethereum or on Solana, for example?
Actually, if you look at our current app, this is like the third iteration of this app. So we have been toying with this idea. I think it started with a really very simple premise. And the premise was, can we get creators or users to move away from all of these large behemoth platforms which have all these built-in network effects? Can we get them to move from that to a platform if they were remunerated for the time that they spent on this platform? So if you look at any of these other large platforms, they don't actually remunerate their users for the time that they spend on these platforms, although these users are the primary source of revenue for these platforms. Essentially, if they are making all the money, they don't get anything in return for that. So the premise was, can we remunerate them for the time that they spend on this? So the first version that we had actually created, I think this was around 2019. So back in 2019, we were toying with this idea, and it was again a very simple app. It only had photo uploads, and that's all you could do. But we built this completely on cloud. And essentially, the idea was, once we had built this, the photo upload and sort of like the content consumption part of it, we wanted to check how we could bring in uh, remuneration for content creators, right? So again, back then, blockchain hadn't blown up in terms of social content still working with blockchain, right? So back then we were looking at some avenues, but that is when I think the bull run had just started. So blockchain really came into the fray, and this crossed our radar. Like, okay, this is something that is like blockchain's superpowers. Essentially, using blockchain, you can actually have somebody in, let's say, Romania get remunerated for the time and attention that they're bringing to a platform, and then they have creators maybe sitting out of different geographies in the world, and then token transfers, essentially value transfers, happens very simply without any boundaries, without having any intermediaries, without anybody having to step in between. So essentially, we were pretty convinced that blockchain was the way to go. So the next step was now to choose which one, right? And we had a lot of options back then also. So I think Ethereum was again the natural choice. We looked at that first. However, as the bull run was starting, around that time, most Ethereum transactions, I'm sure you would also remember, it was like one transaction, if you wanted to send, let's say, $5 in value, you're probably spending $100 in gas fees. So this was absolutely unsustainable, right? And in our case, we wanted to experiment with this idea of microtransactions. So imagine if you spent, let's say, a minute on the platform, and let's say you were supposed to be remunerated a thousandths of a fractions of a cent, we should have be able to send you that value immediately and instantly, right? So for every video that you watch, for every video that you upload, for every game that you play on the platform, we want to be able to remunerate you in real time. And for that, microtransactions had to be a possibility at scale, at near zero cost, right? So from that perspective, we started looking around. We looked at quite a few solutions. So we looked at both L2 solutions as well as other L1s, which called themselves like Ethereum killers, right? And during that time, I think Dfinity had just come out and started testing their mainnet. I think they had Genesis, and that was when Dfinity crossed our radar. So then again, the price listing action was also bombastic. So that got our attention. So we started looking into, okay, what is this and why is this suddenly listed on number 4, right? On CoinMarketCap, it's suddenly listed on number 4 and out of the blue. So obviously that got us interested, and we started looking at the tech. Again, I spent some significant amount of time looking at, okay, why is this supposed to be the next AWS, right? And again, I think back then, Dfinity also marketed themselves as like the future of cloud, right? So that totally got my attention, and I started digging into the tech. So although the price sort of kept bombing, but the tech was absolutely brilliant, I mean, amazing. And I think as we evaluated further, we realized Dfinity's ICP was the only platform where you could build a social ecosystem the way that we were envisioning it, where we could do all these very minuscule microtransactions would be possible. No other chain would support this, because essentially we needed to find a replacement for our entire backend and our database. And ICP is the only protocol right now in the entire blockchain ecosystem that supports a use case like this.
Not only are the transactions cheap, because like there are, a few other blockchains where the transactions are cheap, but the fact that you're able to host an entire dApp on chain for, relatively reasonable prices, like compared to Ethereum or Solana, where there would be like millions of dollars to be able to host stuff on chain. I think that the Internet Computer Protocol excels there. And, we also have the reverse gas fee model, where users don't have to pay, the small fee that there is, they don't have to pay even that to use the platform. So yes, for the people who are not familiar to Hodornaut and are seeing this video for the first time, first of all, you guys are in the middle of a rebranding right now, right?
Yeah.
Can we maybe hear like the future name, so that we don't talk about it as Hodornaut? Like, can you guys hint a little bit at the name that you'll have?
It might just be difficult because a lot of people would be listening to this podcast, and they might just book our, the future social handles beforehand,
Okay,
which we would not want to happen.
of
So it's
course.
another, week across, and yeah, we'll be coming out with the new name really soon. So right
Mm.
now you can, refer it as Hot or Not itself, and the Hot or Not game will still be retained across the entire ecosystem. So which means that there'll be now a version of Hot or Not under the bigger brand name.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about it as hot or not. And for the people that are not familiar to hot or not, can you describe, like, to help people understand how actually the platform works and what it is about?
Yeah, it's a very simple platform. It's a Web3 version of TikTok or Instagram Reels. You can come in and start watching videos without even logging in or installing your MetaMasks or Solana wallets and so on and so forth. And at the same time, you can now play different kinds of games, mostly voting games, wherein you can decide if the video will go viral or not go viral, stake some tokens against your decision, and then in a span of an hour. So essentially, while the competition ends, you either win or lose depending on where the majority is voted. So if Alex said this video, which Rishi is dancing in, is not hard, and other people, Shoikat came in and said this is hard. Other people also supported Shoikat. Alex loses the tokens that he staked and invested in Rishi's content. It's as simple as that. So it's gamification on social content.
Exactly. And that gives the opportunity to people that, spend their time on the platform to also earn for their time. And besides the betting on the virality of a video, is there any other mechanism for
Yeah,
people to use?
rightly said, Alex. So we operate in a framework of a DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization. So now each and every user coming onto the Hot or Not ecosystem is actually a co-founder. Although depending on how many tokens he has access to, his voting power also depends on the quantum of tokens that he has earned or bought from the market. But essentially, if Alex is using the platform, whatever hot tokens he has earned or acquired or bought through that, some kind of voting power comes to Alex, and then subsequently he can take decisions on the future roadmap of the platform. Now, what happens in this particular framework is all the users are now kind of co-founders, co-owners of the entire ecosystem. And although we are the co-founders who initially started off with the vision, but now after the DAO was incorporated, each and every person gets a say on what features should be implemented, which direction should the platform should take. And essentially, in addition to this, there has been so we have also written down smart contracts in which people are incentivized to perform certain actions, which adds value to the ecosystem. So if Alex uploads videos on Hot or Not, there's a certain kind of incentive in the form of hot tokens, which comes to Alex as soon as the video hits a certain milestones. So for example, the smart contract can say if Alex gets 100 likes on the video in a span of 24 hours, there'll be 100 hot tokens which will be allocated to Alex. So for example, around $10, $20, or some kind of equivalent US dollars will get allocated. And similarly, if you're just spending time, if you are moderating content, again in the framework of a DAO, if you are interacting with other users on the platform, if you are gaining followers, each and every action is incentivized. Basically, if you are adding value, you will be earning some kind of rewards, financial rewards from day one. On the web 2 platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and the others, you have to wait like literally years. It takes around 1 to 2 years, 3 years before you are able to monetize your following or your content. And in several cases, we have understood that people lose interest, especially content creators lose interest much before that. But when we talk about something like in Hot or Not, a Web3 ecosystem, the monetization starts from the first minute that you jump onto the platform, and you don't have to wait for years, especially for the end consumer.
Yeah.
Not specifically for content creators, I would say professional content creators generally have access to tens of different platforms. There are other benefits for content creators as well in a Web3 ecosystem, but for an end consumer, there is no other way to monetize the time and attention that they spend scrolling hours of content on various platforms. And a platform like Hot or Not offers that capability for these users to monetize from the first instant that they jump onto the platform.
This is a huge deal. Like, you can go to a social media platform and you can start producing content that for example, content that you put on Instagram or on Twitter or whatever else you put, you're not getting paid for it, exactly like you said. You come to Web3 dApp, you post it, and immediately you start making money. And now this comes with the problem, like people are going to try to game the system and, for example, take videos from TikTok, take videos from Instagram that did well, and they will start uploading it, or stock videos, they will start uploading it to Hot or Not. And how do you make sure that, because honestly, I feel that those people should not be rewarded because it's not original content. So how are you planning to deal with people trying to game this system?
Rightly said, Alex. So this has already happened with us. A lot of people, put out content from the TikToks and the Instagrams of the world onto Hot or Not. But first of all, we have anonymous identity. So which means that Alex can be anonymous, can choose to remain anonymous on the platform, and we do not link the real world identity of Alex to the Hot or Not identity that Alex has in the ecosystem. So which means that even if you are putting your true original content from Instagram, from TikTok, from YouTube onto Hot or Not, first of all, there is no way for the us as a platform to verify if it's the same Alex or not. So that's the first problem. But secondly, what we have also figured out is that we have given a tool of flagging out videos to the community members. So, users who would be watching Alex's videos and following Alex's content, if in some way they understand that this is not Alex who is actually putting out videos, they can flag this piece of content. Now, while somebody flags this piece of content, specifically the community members who are using the platform, this goes out into a moderation feed. Now, in a moderation feed, there are validators who have to stake some tokens and then take a decision on if the piece of content or the creator should stay on the platform or not. So, which also means that now these are people, users who are essentially just watching videos, but in a way they are also contributing into the ecosystem, becoming validators and validating what pieces of content are actually valuable for the ecosystem or are not valuable or are copyrighted and so on and so forth. So now the power has come into the hands of users who are actually viewing, and spending all this time consuming a whole lot of content, and now they have the power to take decisions on whether this piece of content is true to the creator who is actually putting it out or not. Also at the same time, if you are taking a decision against the majority, so which means that half of the people said, less than half of the people said that this piece of content actually belongs to Alex, but majority said that this piece of content did not belong to Alex. The majority mostly, so the majority always wins, but people who voted in the opposite direction, they lose the staked tokens that they put out in order to take their decisions. So essentially, long story short, today Elon Musk's of the world can take a decision on who should stay on Twitter, who should not. Mark Zuckerberg, the US government, all these governments have power on what should happen in on the platforms which are there across the globe. But in the Web3 world, in platforms like Hot or Not, you as an end consumer are literally one of the co-founders, and you have the power to change the direction and say that this piece of content should not reside on the platform, or is not valuable, or has some copyright issues. And anyone and everyone using the platform can choose the direction. They just need to stake the tokens that they have, and then subsequently take a decision which the majority should agree with in order to move forward.
I think that content moderation is one of the most important things for a platform like Hot or Not. Because listen, you don't want somebody to join the platform and see a bunch of crap that doesn't have anything to do with anything and think like, what the hell is this? Like, what's happening? Like, I get a random stream of randomness, which doesn't mean anything, and it has literally no value. So this is definitely something important, to keep in mind. And of course, there will be people who are upset. Like we've seen it in another ecosystem, dApp, people being accused of being farmers or not doing what they should be doing. So it's great, and this will be probably a task for the DAO, for the Hot or Not DAO, to decide how to best fix the issue with genuine content.
But more things that we would want to add, Alex, with respect to the AI algorithms that we are building. Shoikat would be happy to talk about it. So we have hired a very small team of creating some kind of algorithms, which basically decides which piece of content should actually come onto the platform in the first phase, and then subsequently the content moderation can also be taken in the hand of the community members. So Shoikat, if you would just want to talk about.
Yeah, so actually this is very interesting because I this is really important for content discovery. So what made TikTok so popular is the algorithm, which shows you exactly what you want to see. So you don't even know what you want to see. The algorithm knows better than you what video to feed you next. So how are you guys planning to do this content discovery? How are people going to see the content on Hot or Not?
Yep. So just to also talk a bit about where we are and how we came here. So essentially, if you think about it, it's a huge application that we are trying to build and tackle, right? So first of all, we have this media pipeline and storage problem where first we take any video that anybody in the entire world can upload, and then we figure out, okay, how do we store it? How do we effectively and quickly deliver it to anybody who wants the next cat video or the next car video that they want to watch, right? So that is a problem that first we tried to tackle with decentralization in mind. So essentially, we cannot use cloud for everything, but then we still need to solve. So essentially, imagine driving a race car and trying to fix a problem with the race car while the race car is running, right? So that is what we are attempting to do, where we have a platform. We've built out as much as possible on the blockchain, but we also have a couple of off-chain components that help us deliver this fast and captivating experience to any user across the world. So that was the video content journey that we initially embarked on, and we've managed to solve it to a certain degree. I'll come back to this as we talk about scalability and how we are sort of building the next level of scaling that should let us scale to any amount of users in the world. Right. Now, going back to your question around content discoverability and moderation. So the next big investment that we are making in terms of the application and the team that we are building out is in AI. So we are currently hiring and have been hiring for the last 3 to 4 months a lot of AI specialists who can help us figure out content discoverability essentially. So what do I mean by that? So right now, if you look at the current feed that's delivered on Hot or Not, it's pretty static. It's pretty static in that if you or Rishi visit the app at the same time, you will more or less get the same kind of content being given out to you. The reason for this is primarily there's no personalization that we've yet built into the system. So essentially right now we only track engagement metrics. So things like likes, shares, how many views a current video is getting. And based on that, we try to determine, okay, what are the most interesting pieces of content that are part of our library. And subsequently, anybody who's visiting the app for the first time, they get delivered a set of videos. And as they keep scrolling, we give them more videos to watch from this list. Right now, we are moving away from that and moving to a more intelligent feed. To enable this, the first step for us is to figure out two pieces of this coin. The one side of the coin is the content itself. So all the content that's being uploaded to our platform, we need to actually intelligently index the content in this video. So imagine we take a look at a lot of signals. So we use pre-trained models to figure out, essentially we do some sort of frame snapshotting. So imagine if there's like an 1 minute video, we take screenshots at intervals. So let's say every 10 seconds, we take a screenshot, run image analysis on top of that and try and figure out, okay, what is this particular video about? Is it a car video? Is it a cat video? Is it a nature video? Is it a video of somebody walking on the beach? What it is about. The second thing is we look at signals like, so when you're uploading a video, you're also adding some metadata. So imagine descriptions, imagine tags that you add to the video, and that also feeds it as one of the signals. So there's a couple of signals that we look at, and we create these things called content embeddings. So what content embeddings allows us to do is have like a very rich database of imagine like keywords that we can query against and find out, okay, if this particular user wants a particular category of videos, we serve them that. So the other part of that coin that I was referring to, that is the user's preferences. So now for every user that signs up with us, we maintain sort of like a interest category for that user. So let's say Alex watches a lot of maybe race car videos, whereas Rishi watches a lot of funny cat videos, right? So we can actually recognize that and store that information in the user's canister, and then combine these two aspects to figure out, okay, what are likely videos that Alex specifically likes and what are specific videos that Rishi specifically likes, and then deliver that to them. So this is the next journey that we are currently on, where we take in content from anybody, figure out what's in that content, tag it sufficiently, and put that in our library. And subsequently, once anybody comes on the platform, we try to, again, we do this in a pseudo anonymous mechanism where we don't invasively track them, but then we need to be able to at least look at what kind of content they're consuming, and basis that we try and figure out what is the next set of content that they might find in.
Besides content moderation, like this, feeding the users the right content that will keep them on the platform is one of the biggest challenges, because you want people, first of all, to have fun on the platform. And I think that the three pillars of Hot or Not, or for any successful social media platforms, are, first of all, be able to sustain as many users as want to come to the platform. Secondly, you want to make sure that they are having a great time on the platform. And three, you want them to be compensated for producing content. And I think if you guys nail those three, you guys are going to be golden. And for the past 4 months, if I'm not mistaken, you guys have fixed or resolved the issue of being able to onboard as many people as possible. So first of all, I'm curious, how are you leveraging the ICP tech to build Hot or Not? And what's behind the scenes, what is on chain, what is happening behind the scenes, but not super technical, because most of our watchers are not super technical, in simpler terms.
Sure. So as I alluded to before, I think, like I mentioned, this is the third iteration of the app that we are currently on. So the first iteration was mostly it was cloud based with a photo thing. Second iteration, we actually built an on-chain variant, but we built that using something called Motoko. So Motoko is it's called a DSL. It's basically the language of the IC. So on the internet computer, Motoko is the language that you use for writing smart contracts if you're not familiar with any of the existing languages. So it's a brand new language that Dfinity created. So we use that to build a single canister version. So on the IC, you have these things called canisters, which are basic units of computation. So something like on the cloud, if you are aware, maybe there's something called VMs, virtual machines. It's very similar. So if you can draw that analogy, it's very similar on the IC. So the first variant that we built was a single canister, which means it only has limited amount of storage and limited amount of computing capability. So initially when we launched that, we saw pretty decent uptake on the application. So essentially a lot of people started using it, and at some point we started seeing a bit of throttling. So essentially we hit the limits on how much we could achieve using a single canister. Then we wrote this version that you're currently using, which is the third variant, where we gave every user a canister that stores their own data. So we went with this model called a single user, single canister architecture. So here what we are doing is, every user who signs up with us, we give them a canister, and any interactions that they have with the Hot or Not platform, that goes into this canister of theirs. However, when we built this, we made some assumptions around scalability to a certain extent, in that all of these canisters are provisioned in a single subnet. So again, in the IC ecosystem, the way things work is, you have canisters. These canisters are part of something called a larger subnet. And then these subnets, the IC can have multiple subnets. So essentially all these subnets can then send messages to each other, and that is how the IC scales. So you can have as many IC subnets, as many node providers the internet computer can onboard. So right now, our current canister fleet is located in a single subnet. The problem with this is, a single subnet has a certain amount of maximum canisters that it can host. So in our case, the theoretical limit is around 100,000. We have decided cognizantly to stop signups at 50,000 canisters. So right now we are sitting at around 52,000 on this single subnet. So the next logical way to sort of scale further would be, we need to be present on as many subnets as possible, right? So if you finished up a single subnet, you then spill over to another subnet. So that is what we've currently re-architected. We are in the process of rolling this out. You'll probably see this happening in the next 1 to 2 weeks. So you might have noticed a lot of cycle burning ongoing in the last couple of weeks, and you'll see this happen for the next couple of weeks as well. So this is because we are pre-provisioning canisters on every subnet. This is a big deal. Let me re-summarize what I'm trying to talk about. So essentially, every subnet on the IC, hot or not, will have canisters on them. The way we are doing this is, so every subnet on the IC, and these are called general app subnets, we will have canisters, a certain number of canisters provisioned on them. And if a user signs up with us, we immediately provision any one of these canisters from any one of these subnets. So imagine if there are 10,000 people signing up at the same time, they will not be limited to a single subnet where they're signing up. They'll be sort of, I won't say randomly, but it's like a round robin order. So basically, we will dynamically distribute the load of these signups to different subnets, which means our upper bound of how much we can scale is limited by how much the IC can scale. So right now we are starting off with around 10,000 canisters on each subnet, but we can go up to 50,000. So imagine if the total capacity of the IC is 20 subnets, we can have right now 50,000 into 20. That's close to a million, right? So million canisters created at max. So that is the number of signups that we can take. But again, the IC is limitless. So we are hoping we can also be limitless with the same.
And what's the benefit for a user that they are getting a canister? Like each user gets a canister. So like, does it matter to the user itself, or what's the deal?
It absolutely matters. So to put this into perspective, so imagine in terms of the upper bound of how much we can scale. So essentially, as a network, our upper bound is limitless because the IC is limitless. So as long as the IC can keep onboarding new node providers and keep adding the number of subnets to the network, we can have as many users as possible with this same model where we just keep spilling over to the next subnet that comes online. Right now, for every user who is getting their own canister, so right now, if you've been following the news, you would have seen that the IC has progressively increased the amount of memory that a single canister can provision. So I think we started out with something very small, around 4 gigabytes, but that has progressively gotten to a time right now where we are in the hundreds of gigabytes. So imagine a single user, their entire data is upper bound by hundreds of gigabytes, which mostly we have not seen any user use at all. So just to give you some ideas, our mean distribution of user data would be anywhere between 5 to 10 megabytes of data. And some of the outliers, so some people who upload very heavily, imagine 10 to 20 pieces of content a day, they are sitting at anywhere around 50 megabytes of data consumed inside canister. So this is like a very high limit. We virtually don't see any user exhausting their canister limit anytime in the next couple of years. The implication of this is then all users, we don't ever have to worry about running out of space for a single user. And then we also have additional features that we are building around backups and live migrations. We can maybe get into that.
I remember when I was talking to Rishi like 4 months ago, he mentioned that this canister that every user gets, for example, if I move from, Hot or Not, I go to a different platform, all my followers and my history remains in this canister, and I just imported into a different social media. Is that so? Is that? I think this is huge because, for example, I take my followers from Twitter, I get banned, I don't care. I go to Facebook, I have my followers again. You guys took this approach, which was, I assume, like more resource intensive and more time consuming, like to come up with this. But the goal is that you're finally freeing the user to be able to be platform agnostic by giving them this canister, right? So is this how it works, or like does it need more explaining?
Absolutely. So the idea behind this is, so now this Hot or Not backend where users' data is stored in their own canister, this is not married to the front end. So imagine right now you are accessing Hot or Not on hotornot.wtf. If you go to that app, that is just a front end, which is connecting to these canisters. Any other, imagine tomorrow if Discover decides to have short videos that they want to serve, all they have to do is make calls into the Hot or Not network's canisters. The canisters can respond with, let's say, a feed of video data, and Discover can also choose to show that data. Now, if, let's say, we want to connect these two social platforms. So if Discover chooses to put up a proposal to the Hot or Not governance via SNS that we want to integrate Discover with Hot or Not and consume Hot or Not's identity information. So imagine if Alex has an account on Hot or Not with their data, and this proposal essentially gets passed, then this identity can now be shared with Discover as well, where inside Discover, Alex's data will show up as short video content that he has published, right? So it is absolutely possible. It might need a couple of proposals to be passed, and for these two DAOs to agree on what data will get shared between these two platforms. But if this passes, Rishi or Shoikat cannot come in and say no, we won't allow this, right? If the community passes this vote, it will get implemented.
You can imagine how the future would look like is nobody can ban Alex from the platform, at least not a single individual. The community will need to vote why they are banning Alex from a single platform or not. But then Alex can take this entire fleet of smart contracts that that are following Alex, or for example are present across different platforms, and then subsequently choose to have the same following over there without reinitiating the entire work from scratch, which right now happens across the Web2 platform. The only consideration that needs to be there is that these two different dApps or 10 different dApps needs to be able to consume the underlying canisters. So if somebody builds something which can again consume the same fleet of canisters, you do not need to worry about being banned from X app or Y app or Z app. You can move with the same following with your pieces of content everywhere. And this concept is called a social graph concept. There are other chains wherein the social graph is being built, but in the case of IC, what we have been able to do with the one user per canister architecture is build this entire social graph, wherein now each user has their own smart contract with all the data that has been created from scratch from day one gets retained in that smart contract itself. For example, for Alex, your lifelong history of all the socials on the IC Web3 ecosystem initially, and then subsequently socials will reside in the same smart contract forever.
That would be cool because, for example, right now if I join a new, and even if I join a new Web3 platform right now, I start with 0 followers. So is this standard that you're talking about, is like everybody needs to come to this consensus that this should be used, or are you guys talking to everybody else to use the same standard and have them work with one another?
Like you said, Alex, so essentially how we have been planning all these different parts is that we want to collaborate with other IC projects initially, and then subsequently get more developers to build along with us. So which means that today you can just imagine that Hotonaut consumes all the canisters, which are like 52,000 underlying canisters at this point in time. But tomorrow, as Shoikat mentioned, Discover can also choose to utilize those 52,000 canisters. OpenChat can come in again, explore this or consume these 52,000 canisters, and then Alex can come in and say, today I want to create a dating app with these 52,000 people. You can choose to come in and start building, of course. So this is much there in the future. The capability is not right there. What we are talking about is a future vision, but you can just consider that this underlying fleet of canisters, like hundreds of thousands of millions of canisters, can be consumed by anybody who chooses to build on these canisters or would want to partner with somebody like a Hotonaut.
I like that you guys are building it now with the vision for the future, for what will be in the future. I think this is important, so that you don't build something now and then you realize, you know what, it would have been a great idea to do that, and then you have to rebuild it from scratch. And listen, this will take time. So I want to talk about, what have you guys done for the past 4 months? Like, what's the big updates and the big things that you have been working on over the past 4 months?
I would just want to talk about the business before Shoikat jumps in and talks a whole lot about technology that we have been building, because most of the focus was building the technology. But from the point of view of business, first of all, what Shoikat mentioned, this multi subnet architecture bit, we are really the first ones to be able to build this on the IC, and theoretically now our limit is the scaling. As far as the IC can scale, we can, as Hotonaut, and the number of canisters being included as as an individual user can scale. So it's a very, very, very big deal, primarily because even somebody like, so there's only I think OpenChat, which right now has a multi-subnet architecture, but the way they have built this entire platform is that especially OpenChat, that they rent out the entire subnet and then subsequently have their users consuming that particular subnet, and it causes a problem while you are trying to scale. For example, from 50,000 or 100,000 to 500,000 overnight, because then you would need to rent out an entire subnet first and put out an NNS proposal, and there's a lag of a few days in between. But with an architecture like ours, theoretically there is like literally zero delay while we have to onboard from 50,000 to 500,000 users. And this has happened with us before. So I think the last time we met, Alex, I talked about one day on I think December 14, 2022. Somebody just put out something about hot or not in a Telegram group in Indonesia. Approximately around 15,000 users came in a span of just 2 hours. We had to shut down our platform. We ran out of cycles. Dominic Williams, from ICP, he thought that there's a DDoS attack happening, and after that, I think for the next few days there were no signups. Similar case happened while we were doing the SNS. We got a whole lot of, so we were doing some kind of airdrops. A whole lot of users signed up. Around maybe 20 to 30,000 users signed up in a span of a few days, and again we ran out of capacity. Social platforms will never be able to run if you cannot scale fast, and that's the problem that we have been facing for the last 1.5 2 years now while building on the IC, because it's the same example what Shaikat gave in. It's a race car and we are sitting on the race car, but if something breaks, then what is there? So either you stop the race car and you try and realign everything, or you try to do whatever best you can, and that's the approach that we have been doing. So the biggest feat of us over the last 5 to 6 months is the multi subnet piece. But then there are a lot of other things that have happened. One more thing that I would want to add on before Shoika takes over is we are also looking to get some fresh content creators from different geographies. So we are trying to set up a production house. So you can just imagine, for example, you're sitting in Romania, and Romania, has this house wherein you are sitting. You have all the equipment. What if you can, call in content creators to your house to be able to help them create content, and you earn some kind of hot token rewards, for the same. We are trying to set up a process wherein existing content creators would be able to call in other ecosystem community members to create content if they have the entire ecosystem, but as and when they help other people put out original content on Hot or Not, all the participating community members earn some kind of financial rewards in the form of hot tokens. So it will be rolled out very soon, and especially we are starting out in geographies like India at this point in time. We are setting up a small production house in Mumbai, which is the Bollywood capital of India. It's exactly like Hollywood, but has the, I think the number of movies being produced are even higher than Hollywood, and that's the first target market where we are starting out from. But then all these geographies wherein a lot of content can be created, people who are interested in creating a whole lot of content will be targeted going forward. So Nigeria is one country which I think a lot of people know. A lot of content creators come from Nigeria. Southeast Asia, countries like Indonesia, Vietnam, and then subsequently places like Miami, Texas, and a few other places in the US. Whole lot of content creators exist, and this is the kind of offline model also that we are trying to initiate. Lots of details will come on that front, I think, in the next month or so. But you will see a lot of things also happening on the ground, and not just on the online side of things. Is how we are targeting getting new content creators on the Hot or Not bandwagon.
I remember the last time we talked, you were really not worried at all about bringing the next million users on the platform. So is that still the case? Like, do you think that is going to happen like that?
Alex, it happens in a jiffy. So yeah. So again, giving you the same example that I might have told you, the last time also, and even right now, while I told you about 15,000 people coming in a span of couple of hours. So we have seen in geographies like Nigeria, Vietnam, Indonesia, India, all these developing nations. Some content creators have falling into the millions. For example, an average content creator in India, good content creator who has a history of 5 7 years, might have a following of 4 to 5 million followers. They charge $2 to $3,000, $4,000 to put out a piece of content to their followers, and hundreds of thousands of people follow the 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 piece of content that they put out. So if some existing content creator in India who has a following of 5 million followers puts out something about Hot or Not, we can expect 100,000 users to come in. Maybe between 50 to 100,000 users signing up on Hot or Not.
And you need to be ready for that. And I think all the ICP community, everybody will be pleasantly surprised to see this in motion and to see this happen. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
We need to just solve a few things before we can go out and market Hot or Not. Primarily, first thing is, if you can't sign up, then there is no point marketing. So that's something that we had to solve first. Second thing is, even if people are signing up and leaving right after that, it's a waste of marketing effort, and all the expenses that will go and the resources will go out in marketing. So the AI bit also needs to be solved first, that while people are coming in, they should be able to watch videos that they like and not watch a random string of videos, which again would take a bit more time before we start running these campaigns with content creators, not just in countries like India, Indonesia, Vietnam, but also in countries like the US, because US, Canada, again, a whole lot of content creators ecosystem. There are, I think, 200 million people on TikTok in the US out of a population of 330 million. So 66% of 70% of all US citizens are already on platforms like TikTok, and they spend 3 hours, 4 hours daily just scrolling content. It's humongous numbers. TikTok is sitting at a valuation of $300 billion, in the private markets. It's the biggest startup by far across the globe, even beating SpaceX by a margin of $150-200 billion. We are talking about huge numbers here. People are spending billions of hours daily just watching content, and there is no second or third player in the ecosystem. It's just TikTok or maybe Instagram Reels in some geographies, and no other player. The entire space is empty for players like us to be able to come in and expand. And hence we hope that we'll create values worth billions really soon across the entire ecosystem, because these are the ethos on which we are building the platform, wherein each and every contributing member of the ecosystem starts getting rewarded from day one and does not have to wait for years and months before they're able to do that.
When do you think that this onboarding process will happen? Like, do you have like an estimate when those users will be able to join the platform and start producing content?
All these things have been under the works over the last 4 to 6 months since the SNS. But I'm sure that a lot of projects and community members across the ICP ecosystem would agree that it's not fairly easy to build a platform like we are talking about at this point of time. We had a physical limitation of just 50,000 users, while the SNS got over. And at the same time, we have been facing these limitations of being able to just scale up. This is the primary thing that we have been, targeting. And now with all the things that has been initiated, we are just around the corner to open at least the multi-subnet bit. Again, it took a lot of time, lots of resources, a whole lot of just keeping our heads down and just building. And hence while community members were talking that what's happening and why is Hot or not being able to open signups, because again it's not fairly easy using these kind of technologies, which are the first in across the ICP ecosystem. And again, so we are not just talking about ICP. There is not even a single social media app which stores all these things on chain across any other ecosystem. We are literally doing things which are world's first and not just ICP ecosystem first. And when you are doing these kind of things, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of time. But coming back to the answer, I think in the next few months we would see all these marketing campaigns getting initiated and hundreds of thousands of people joining the bandwagon. We are really not afraid of getting 1 million users, I think, in a span of a few months. What we are afraid of, what will happen after the 1 million users. Whether we'll be able to onboard more users after that, or would we still need to close down our signups after we onboard 1 million users, is the thing that we are more worried about as compared to anything else.
So right now it is 22nd of February when we're filming this. Like, would you say that by this year's summer, June, July, do you think that we will do another podcast and we'll be talking like, guys, you did it, we now have 1 million users on Hot or Not? Like, is that going to happen?
Yeah. So Alex, again, there are two things with respect to users. So one is the number of users that you can onboard. I'm sure that that might just be over a million. But when you talk about active users, monthly active users, so which means how many users are coming back each and every month, that's something that will only get resolved with the AI algorithms.
Hmm.
While the AI algorithms are in place, and we understand that we right now do not have a lot of content. We are using pre-trained AI models in order to figure out how we can do this. So one problem with while competing against these behemoths is that they get access to, like, they have access to billions of content pieces. They can train their algorithms much better than what we can do, because we have access to a limited amount of content. I think with these 52,000 users, we had close to 300 to 400,000 videos which got uploaded by these users who actually logged in through internet identity. The point that I'm trying to make is, until unless you have a lot of content with you, you can't and a whole lot of users who are active, you can't train the AI as well as you could find something across a TikTok or an Instagram. And then that becomes some kind of a pathway wherein it becomes more and more difficult to compete with these giants as they garner more and more content, more or less every. So we might just get better and be around maybe 80 to 90% of what TikTok algorithm has. And if we are able to do that in the next 5 to 6 months, we can assume that we can have a million monthly active users, not just users. I'm sure that we'll have the users more than a million. We can have, if the canisters, if we can create, for example, 4 million canisters on the IC ecosystem, I don't see even 4 million users coming onto the Hot or Not ecosystem. What is a challenge is how many active users will there be.
Exactly.
And then, yeah, it only depends on the AI piece that we need to solve for. And like we have now, I think over the last 4 to 6 months, resolved the scaling aspect, which is like creating dynamic canisters across multiple subnets. The second piece that now we are in the process of solving is getting there with respect to the algorithms. I think Shoikat would love to add a whole lot of other things that we have done over the last 4 months. But these are the two major pieces that as per my understanding, we would really want to solve first before anything
And
else.
as you mentioned, the last 4 months you fixed the scaling problems, where now you will be able to have a lot of people to join the platform. Now the problem becomes, how do you keep those people coming back? And this is where
Yeah.
the algorithm comes in, and it needs to be trained to make sure that people have a reason to come back to Hot or Not. So that's really nice to see that now it's a different problem that you have to tackle, and I'm looking forward to hear what technical stuff has been happening at Hot or Not over the past 4 months.
Just to give you sort of like a set the context, when we did our SNS, essentially this application just had two developers. So it was me doing the complete backend, which is all of the smart contracts and anything off chain that we did, and then we had another front end developer who was primarily building the web app that you currently use, right? We had to transition from that to a larger team, right? So it cannot just be me doing everything. We need to scale up to a team that can solve the problems that we are trying to tackle. So I'll just try to summarize I think it's like four problems that we're trying to solve. And like Rishi explained it, so we have in the past, we have experienced viral growth, and it mostly looks like a complete hockey stick growth, right? So essentially when Rishi mentioned, so we had this creator who shared Hot or Not on one of their social channels that went viral, and essentially all of their followers started signing up, and then they started sharing the same link into their socials, right? So it was sort of like an avalanche effect. So in our case, the ability to scale is paramount. If we are not able to constantly keep up with the demand of signups from an ever growing, constantly growing list of users, that kills the momentum. So no matter what scaling strategy we implement, it has to be able to absorb unbound amount of users. So essentially, if we have a million users signing up, we should be able to absorb that. If we cannot do that, that kills momentum and we have to stop signups, which again, that halts growth for a very long period of time. Then because you have to again figure out, okay, how can I add more users? How can I go from a stop sign up to again opening up signups and such. So this time we had to solve. So there are a couple of things. We had to solve scalability to a point where we can absorb both a very large number of users signing up at the same time, as well as keep signups open, so that this architecture solves as many users as we can sign up, right? Now, if you look at it from the perspective of what other things we've been up to, so the first thing that we've been doing is we've hired a team of very capable Rust engineers. So another thing, strategy that we've doubled down on is we've doubled down on Rust for everything that we do. So right now we have a front end that we are building in Rust. Again, this is sort of a new in the IC ecosystem. I think there were a couple of posts around this on the forum, but we chose to use Rust for everything. This brings a lot of benefits. Maybe we can get into that, but it eases up our hiring process and it helps us build software with a superior technology, which is Rust in this case. Rust lets us do very lean things, both on the front end. We're also building our smart contracts with Rust, and we have some off-chain components, which we also do in Rust. So to go back to the answer, like what we've been up to in the last couple of months, we have been focusing on 4 key areas. The first one is we want unlimited scalability. The second thing that we focused on is we wanted a web app which had zero lag, which was very smooth, and you can keep scrolling through it as fast as you can, and the web app should be able to keep up with that. So in the past, we've had complaints where users, including a lot of people from Dfinity, have complained to us like, why does your web app lag? If I keep scrolling, at some point my browser sometimes crashes and such. So we figured out a way to resolve that. So the second very key aspect to this is the front end experience. So any user coming onto the platform, they should have as good of an experience as they would expect from a native mobile app. The third key thing that we are trying to solve is the content discovery and recommendation system. So essentially, for every user, they should have content delivered to them, which is specific to them and not just some generic thing. So I think on Twitter and a lot of these other socials, we have had people troll us saying that at this point, you are a very, we are a content that only serves raunchy content. So why do we have all these content that is not relevant? It's not family safe. This will also help alleviate that. So the idea is, if you like raunchy content, well, you will be served raunchy content. But if you want family friendly content, then the algorithm should be smart enough to figure out that you should be served family friendly. And the fourth major thing that we are sort of also solving is we have built an identity solution that is a parallel to internet identity. And again, this goes back to signups and how we want to solve that critical part. So from a growth and marketing perspective, we are trying to solve 2 problems. The first one is we should be able to sign up users as quickly as possible, and as many users who want to come onto the platform, like without putting in any sort of artificial constraints. They should just be able to sign up. And once they've signed up, we want them to have a good time. We want them to stay on the platform. We want them to get relevant content so that they stick around, right? Because we can figure out ways to maybe have some sort of viral marketing campaigns where a lot of users come in, but if they're not having a good time, if they're not enjoying their time on the platform, they're not going to stick around. So these 4 things that I mentioned, these are the investments that we are making for the next couple of months, and even for the longer term, that should help us both get a lot of new users and keep them around for a very long time.
Yeah, and I think I'm sorry, go on.
And I can specifically get into these 4 aspects, but the first one, unlimited scalability, helps us sign up as many users as they want. The second thing, which is the newer authentication system, we have figured out a way to bring sign up times down from, so previously we were using internet identity. Our sign up times would range anywhere between 30 to 40 seconds. We figured out a way to get that down where login times are anywhere under 1 to 2 seconds and sign up times are anywhere between 3 to 5 seconds. So again, this also lets up quickly sign up users so they can start interacting with the platform as opposed to struggling with the new way of signing up. So again, we have had a lot of discussions with end users as well as internally. We found that initially it is a bit of a mindset shift to figure out how to work with internet identity, and a lot of users who come from the Web2 ecosystem, and primarily in our case, that is the majority of users, they struggle initially with figuring out how to make identity work. And we see a lot of people just falling out and abandoning usage, right? So that was another key piece that we built. The third part too is now that they are on the platform, we need to keep them engaged. So we need a web app which gives them as great of an experience as a native mobile app, and the final piece to it, they are getting relevant content so that they have fun.
Right.
So, in simple language, Alex, I just want to summarize. Sorry, he was using a bit of technical terms. In very simple language, as Alex, a user on Hotternaut, you can come in, start viewing videos in a few seconds, less than what it would take to interact with any other Web3 ecosystem or platform across the globe. First step. Second step is login becomes as easy as logging, signing in with Google or with Facebook across any other Web 2 app, not Web 3. I'm talking about, for any other Web 3 ecosystem, you need to install wallets and, do tens of different things. On the Hotternaut app, it will be like just pressing one button, logging in within a couple of seconds, and maybe, less than a second in some cases. Third thing is start playing games, get access to user tokens, to basically tokens without even logging in. That's another piece that we have built. I think Shoikat missed that, but we'll come down to that later. And fourth aspect, the biggest part, again, I've been talking about all the superlatives, but that's what we have been doing over the last 4 months because everything has been very difficult to build. But the biggest part again is getting efficiency as good as a YouTube Shorts. I think in some cases we have had some internal testings. It's better than what you would get scrolling YouTube Shorts. Just imagine a very small team of a few devs. What we have been trying to accomplish is competing with somebody like a Google, which has access to hundreds of thousands of developers.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's been under the wraps over the last few months.
I think we underestimate when you guys are saying that you fix the problem with being able to expand the number of users. Like, we don't really understand like the full scope of what you guys have achieved, because when in our Web 2 brains cannot comprehend, like, you just create an account, you have an account, but you guys managed to do it and make sure that you will be able to onboard the next million users. I'm sure it is a way bigger deal than we can understand, like us normal people. And now you're working to make sure that the people joining Hotternaut are going to have the best time possible on the platform. So that is now the number one concern that you guys have. We are close on the hour, so we did a post on X and we asked people to ask their question directly to you, and I have selected the questions. So now we will answer the questions, but I want us to do it more in a rapid fire kind of way, like shorter answers and like on the subject. So
we can also do a part 2, Alex, in case required later on. We can also have a part 2 of this entire interview in case you would want to.
I think there is going to be like a part 2, 3, 4, 5. Like there can be like a lot of parts here, and I want you guys to come back here when you're starting getting a bunch of users that come back to the platform. That's going to be interesting to look back at this podcast like 2 months down the line and see like how you guys have upgraded the platform. So the first set of questions is from Passion Planet. What's the reason behind the name change? This is one. Should we expect an UI upgrade? And how are you planning to onboard people from Web 2 to Web 3? So those are the three questions. So what's the reason behind the name change, first of all?
So doing a rapid fire, and we'll keep the answers short. So we had applied for a few trademarks across certain geographies, and we were awarded, the trademarks. So in a country like India, we had applied for a trademark. Hotternaut was an earlier dating site. They did not have a trademark in a country like India, and hence we were able to get our hands on that. And then a few more geographies in Southeast Asia. Initially, we had applied for the trademark. But eventually, over the last few months, years, we have realized that our focus area will not just remain India or Southeast Asia, but we would want to garner attention from all across the globe. And that's where, again, we came back to the aspect. If we want to expand to other geographies, then we would want a name which nobody has and a trademark to in other geographies. And that's why now we are again trying to, choose a different route of naming the entire ecosystem. And now this way we have already applied trademarks even in the countries wherein we would want to expand maybe later on. So even with the new brand name out, I think in the next couple of weeks, the trademark has already been incorporated in the US, in India, in Southeast Asia, and several other geographies. So it's a different approach from what we were taking earlier, because we wanted to remain focused on a few geographies initially with the earlier name, but with the new brand name, the attention will now be to spread across as many geographies as we can.
So the reason behind the name change is legal reasons, and you now the vision is global, is no longer in. Okay, cool. The second question is, will there be an UI upgrade to the website?
Yes, so we are in the process of getting a UI, full-time UI UX designer. Although we currently have, but it's on a contract basis, and you will see several new changes on how the way interacts, you know the entire look and feel, and also the overall interactability of the platform. I think it should be out in the next couple of months. So we have already initiated the work on changing the UI UX to a more optimized way. But again, the changes will start coming in, I think, a few months down the line.
How are you planning to onboard people from Web 2 to Web 3? So we already covered this, but let's go quickly over it again.
So signups under a couple of seconds. So actually logging in under a couple of seconds, signups under 4 to 5 seconds. Sign up with what users are mostly comfortable with. So most of the Web2 users are right now comfortable with signing up with something like a Google or a Facebook account. Incorporate that already inside the app, and there would not be there would be practically zero delay for a person to be able to come on to the Hotternaut ecosystem, view videos, sign up, and start getting tokens and taking those tokens out. It will as good as you would find across any Web2 platform. So we are equating all the UI UX elements with any Web2 app that you currently get your hands on.
And this is important because you cannot expect somebody from Web 2 to start to go to create an NNS wallet, like an internet identity, and then save the words and do all this kind of crazy stuff. You cannot expect a grandma or a parent, like a father, to do that. But I assume that those will be created for them, in the background, without them even
So
being aware that.
If Alex already has a Google account, you do not need to come do anything. You need to come in onto the Hotternaut app, just press sign up with Google. Hopefully your Chrome browser will already have your credentials of Google, and you will be immediately able to sign up, sign in under a couple of seconds. And you won't feel a difference if it's a Web3 app or there'll be tokens underneath and so on and so forth. And the security is being then provided by the underlying canisters. So the canisters will take care of how the security of Alex's data should be retained. And this is again a new architecture which we have come out with. The technical details will be out there on our GitHub, and anybody who is interested in knowing more on how we are able to do this and achieve this, they can just go ahead and have a look at that. And then anyone can also reach out to us in order to understand more on this on the technical aspect.
Perfect. Those were the questions from Passion Planet. Thank you very much for leaving your questions. The next person that left questions, his name is CatLover69 Meow, which is a very interesting name. The first question is, when is the rebranding going to be unveiled? We covered this, but let's just go quickly over it.
In the next week or so, you will look at the new name and the new branding and everything. But the initial point is we are just going in with a temporary rebranding. There'll be more rebranding, so the overall brand identity will again be changed sometime in the future. We'll hire the best of the names, somebody like a TikTok which works with some kind of New York agencies. We'll be hiring those agencies, but again that will happen some more time in the future. But right now we are working with other freelancers, designers who can help us with the brand identity, which can be somewhere in between before we go in with the best people that we can get our hands on. So we still want the platform to grow a bit more, garner 1 million users, a couple of million of active users, before we get the best names in the business and spend that kind of money. Because the biggest agencies will charge close to maybe $1 million or a couple of $1 million. We do not want to go that route today. Hence, we'll come in with the intermediate the brand identity, and then subsequently, get the best in the business working along with us. But again, sometime maybe 6 to 8 months down the line.
Perfect. What are the target countries that you'll focus on initially for growth?
So initial target countries still remain the same. So countries like Indonesia, Vietnam, India, Nigeria. These are the four geographies wherein we have been getting the maximum traffic from. Even when the signups were open, and it will be the same geography. So a country like India, there is no TikTok. TikTok got banned, I think, a couple of years, 3 to 4 years back now, and there is no other alternative except Instagram at this point in time. So this 1.5 billion overall is the population, and tremendous room to grow in these kind of geographies. Even Nigeria is like 200 million English speaking uh, people based out of a particular geography. Indonesia, Vietnam again. So we can get access to close to 2.5 3 billion people just by focusing on these 3 4 geographies, which is like close to 45 50% of the entire population of the planet. And if we are able to establish our names well in these 3 4 geographies, then the rest of the access becomes much easier.
Are you in talks with any centralized exchanges to list the hot token?
We are in talks with the same market makers that somebody like Definity ICP uses, and they are based out of Switzerland. We are in talks with them in order to help us get listed on sexes like Binance, Kraken, and even the smaller ones. So Binance might be a difficult one to get listed initially, and I think I've been reading some tweets around that they do not accept. Somebody like a Dmail, which is also an ICP ecosystem project, got listed recently without listing on a DEX, and I think they listed their token around 10 centralized exchanges. So that's a similar kind of approach that we are following. We'll be listing on sexes, various sexes on the same day, but the date is still not decided. Maybe might happen 4 to 6 months down the line. But that will be the strategy that we'll go in for. That we directly go ahead and list across multiple sexes on the same day. It's a bit too early to talk about it, but we are again using the best in the business to help us do the same.
One question is not by Cat Lover, but it's a question that a few weeks ago there was a little bit of an uproar on X when people were asking about it and complaining about it. Why don't you guys provide some amount of liquidity on DEXs on the Internet Computer Protocol? Because a lot of people are upset about it. Maybe some people want to sell their tokens. Personally, I would let them, sell their tokens and, be done with it. I want to have like supporters that love my project. That's my person. So,
rightly said. So Alex, there are two types of people. Some people on Twitter have been doing a lot of engagement farming on the back of our name. I would not want to, name these people, but
we all
I'm
know
sure
them. Everybody knows them. Like in the ICP community, everybody knows who's talking. Yeah.
Yeah. So these are the kind of people who do not have any kind of stake or token holding on Hot or Not, but they want to garner their more Twitter following and garner more engagement, and hence they put out false information, which we put out against a tweet against when the same incident happened. The second thing is we also put out a motion proposal in which the dev team did not vote. So today also you can go out to all the Hot or Not proposals which were put out, and then we asked the audience, all the community members of Hot or Not, if they would want to go ahead and put out the liquidity right now, or have this vision which we as the initial devs have of listing directly on a sex maybe sometime in the future. What we feel that this will provide much more value to the entire ecosystem as compared to because it's always the same investors which are already also across these ICP dexes. If you can get more investors from outside the ICP ecosystem, we can provide liquidity any other day. We would love to do that through a motion proposal, through a proposal, and vote as a dev team as well. But also at the same time, if it's the same investors, these are mostly people who are interested to just trade the token day in and day out. They do not have the vision of what we are building with Hot or Not, and that's something that as initial co-founders, the initial developers of the platform, we are not really comfortable with. We want that if you came up, if you helped us during the SNS, did all these things, we are looking for a vision 5 years, 10 years down the line, and not just come in, garner Twitter engagement, garner your own following, you know, put out false information about Hot or Not, and then try and just trade tokens and spoil our name or image.
So
Which, Yeah.
One second. So we'll get back to it. So I agree that trying to pull someone down to make yourself look better, I 100% do not agree with that. And people, I feel they are throwing hard words too easily, like to call a legit project a scam is a bad thing. Like you shouldn't do that. Like there are scams happening like almost every day on the Internet Computer Protocol, and those people are not calling them scams. Like we're not calling anybody out right now. But my question is, why not put like $100,000 in liquidity? Who wants to sell? And it's not even for the people that want to sell. Maybe I didn't participate in the hot or not sale. I want to buy tokens now. I cannot buy tokens. There is not enough liquidity. So why not some amount of liquidity?
Yeah. So Alex, we rightly understand all the things that you are mentioning, and as the Hot or Not dev team and the initial founders, we also have the same vision. We would be putting out liquidity really soon, and you will start looking at all the things as the dev team also. So first of all, the motion proposal went out, which did not get passed, but also at the same time, we understand liquidity is very important for the health of the ecosystem. We wanted to solve at least the scaling bit before there's some kind of decision on the liquidity, and then we can put our heads around on what's the next step. And I think in the next few weeks, you will look at some action happening with respect to liquidity, on Hot or Not, across a few selective dexes that we would want to, move out with as the dev team initially. Then subsequently, more people can, choose to have liquidity across different dexes as well. But yeah, the conversation has already started, and you will start hearing some news really soon.
Perfect. And I remember a few weeks ago when the scandal happened, like some ICP community member who probably doesn't even hold any hot tokens, like he made a proposal to add like $1 million worth of liquidity. And like, to me, that's mind blowing. Like you cannot just throw millions like that, like into liquidity. And, saying that, oh, if it was my project, I would have put like millions of dollars. First of all, build the project at the level of Hot or Not, and then you can worry about adding your liquidity. But like somebody to come there like and to throw numbers like that is crazy. But I think a proposal from the Hot or Not team, to add some liquidity for me. Listen, I want to buy some hot tokens, right? How do I buy hot tokens right now?
You'll hear all this information will come out really soon. But also at the same time, there has been a lot. So even if you check, we are already in between the 10 biggest DAOs in the world. So you can check information around how many proposals we have put out. What's the ICP withdrawal that has been done in. We still have the highest treasury in the ICP ecosystem. We are taking steps very slowly, very safely. We do not want the project should get in any kind of trouble wherever be it legal, be it financial, be it operational or any other kind of trouble. And we are very, very, very long term. I think I've been repeating this time and again, but we have a 4-year vesting as the initial dev team and the founder team also. We have a 4-year vesting, which is the highest. I think 99% of the projects have went in for a 2-year vesting for the entire thing. We are, going all out. And Alex, one more thing that I would want to, just put out, if the token holders who are saying that they cannot sell or they cannot buy, we, as the founding team members are also at the same stage, right? We also can't do anything with the tokens that have been vested and are coming to us maybe, every 6 months or every month or, as per the vesting schedule. So we are not looking to sell ourselves, and we are here for a very, very, very long time. You can imagine decades from now, and we have all these plans spanned out on, what will be the Hot or Not's position maybe 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. There'll be a website revamp wherein all this information will come in. But the first bit that needs to be solved is, of course, the scaling and the AI bit, which we have been working on over the last few months. And once this is there, we are getting continuous flow of users who are able to log in. They are getting retained by, getting the videos that they would want to watch. The next piece will be, putting all this information out for anyone to, go ahead and see what our very, very long-term vision is. Like 10 years vision is.
I can see that from the way that you are building the app from the beginning. Like people should watch the whole thing, not just the AMA, like the quickfire questions. Like from the beginning, you're thinking many years ahead and you're building it now so that you won't encounter those problems in the future, which I think is great. And it speaks to the long-term vision that you guys have. And I appreciate that. So those were the questions from Cat Lover. Thank you very much for the questions. We have a question from Belivo. Will you expand outside the ICP ecosystem?
Yes, we would want to expand outside the IC ecosystem. The backend layer, which is the canisters, will always be on the ICP, but then we can also garner users from ecosystems like Solana, Cardano, other L2s across. So what so the plans that we have is that we'll start partnering up with other ecosystems on the front end side of things. It will be joint marketing efforts that will go out, but at the end, the entire infra layer that we currently use will always be on the internet computer. So that way we can garner and get a lot more users, not just from the IC ecosystem, but from outside the IC ecosystem as well as the Web2 world into this IC ecosystem, through this partnership strategy. So yes, we would be, but we would just be building on the IC infra layer and not utilize any of the other, L1s or L2s out there for building. But we'll be partnering up with anyone and everyone outside the IC ecosystem as well.
That's a great answer. And a lot of people were upset with Discover, for example, for reaching out into the Solana ecosystem. But listen, as long as the dApp is built on the Internet Computer Protocol and it's controlled by the DAO on the Internet Computer Protocol, does it really matter that you go to a different chain? Like, Solana now has more volume, more DEX volume than Ethereum. Like you want to be there. And even the investors, if I'm investing in Hodornaut, I want Hodornaut to be in an ecosystem where there's going to be a lot of people willing to buy my hot tokens from me, right? Like we need to reach out of the ecosystem.
Rightly said. So, where the investors are, where there are more users, any project I would say, which is already a DAO or in the process of becoming a DAO in the IC ecosystem should go ahead and do that. Just not Discover, because Discover, if Discover tomorrow is garnering hundreds or thousands of more users directly, more cycles are being burned on the IC. Mm-hmm. And that's what at least, early investors in the IC and the overall IC ecosystem community members also want. People should come in, build more dApps, get more users, get more investors, so that the IC ecosystem also becomes much bigger than its current state.
And there is one question that Aroind had, and he's talking about the team members and general funds allocation. So how does the Hodornaut team look now? The question goes on, say, how do you plan to spend the 96,000 ICP? Percentage-wise, where does the ICP go?
So broadly, we are mostly we have been in the hiring spree over the last 4 to 6 months, right after the SNES. We are a team of 10 devs at this point of time, including the 3 co-founders. So an additional 6 to 7 devs, and then again we are hiring again another 2 to 3 more devs. So when we talk about devs, I am mostly the executive officer in the team, and I do not write code myself, and even the other co-founder Utkarsh. But that's how ICP teams are structured. The initial team members are called devs, and hence we count ourselves as devs only. And of course, I have been a dev throughout my life as well. So, but right now my role is mostly around everything except developing, writing code, which Shoikat and his team does. So overall, 6 to 7 developers who write code at this point in time. I take care of everything: marketing, operations, all the executive decisions. There is Utkarsh, who is the third co-founder, takes care of finances, HR, and other supporting processes. I think under Utkarsh we have a couple of more people, which primarily acts as people in the legal space and in the financial space. And then under me, I have a marketing team, which is another 4 to 5 team members, including 3 interns. So I think there were a few comments on where are the 4 social media marketing managers, but yeah, so there is there are a couple of marketing managers. One is from the offline side of things, one is from the online side of things. Somebody who just takes care of Twitter, the other one takes care of creative onboarding and everything else. And then these people have another 2 to 3 interns each, working all remotely from different geographies. I think what we want is a beautiful website wherein all the team members can be presented. That will happen soon. As I just mentioned, I think 2 3 months down the line, we'll have a website wherein all the team members' names and everything will be there. Another thing that we are starting out is a YouTube R&D. So essentially, we'll be doing an R&D workshop on the lines of Dfinity every other week. So every couple of weeks, we'll have a YouTube video out, which will be conducted by one of our team members. and they will include quite a few of our team members talk about all the things that we are building, and that will also start happening really soon. So uh, if you go onto the forums, you will find a lot of new Hotternaut developers who are putting out all the posts, technical posts, because these are mostly devs. But the team right now stands close to between 15 to 16 members, out of which 12, 13 are full time, and another 4, 5 are interns. So I think overall team size will be between 17, 18 to 20.
And I think like there, as you mentioned, there should be something on your website or somewhere so that people see the team, because there's another community, ICP community member by the name of Hank Kalicious, who, posted a picture. He said that you guys didn't respond to him, and he wanted to know like a revised budget breakdown, which, listen, I don't think any company like breaks down the salaries and that, so that is up to you to release on your websites if you want. But he was wondering, he listed here 10 core developers, including Rust developers, 2 AI developers, 1 product manager, 1 UX UI designer, 4 social media and community managers, 2 HR manager, and 1 finance manager. So like, is there more people, or like, was he accurate with his list?
So this is what we wrote. This is what we wrote in the proposal, and that's
Okay.
where, so we put out this information that we have, this big of a team. And I think what this Hankilicious mentioned, that I don't see, any team member. There is no website wherein I can go ahead and see, who is actually who, and what this entire team comprises of. What I just mentioned is that there'll be a website, around Hotternaut, which will list down all the things. It will list down our mission, vision, everything that we are trying to do, how we are different from somebody like a TikTok, and so on and so forth, and then also the team members. But that might just take another few months to happen. In between, we are starting this YouTube video series, which will be out, I think, in the next couple of weeks. And over there, you will start looking at a whole lot of team members, from the Hotternaut team. Additionally, you can today go to the technical forums, which is internetcommunity.org forums, and then there you can go ahead and see, where the entire team of Hotternaut is. Essentially, everyone from Hotternaut has a logo in their profile pictures, and over there you can see that we have like tens of developers, new developers, who are talking about different issues and addressing all the problems that we face.
That's
for
perfect.
development.
And we see you here. Like you reach out, you want to be on the podcast. Like there is nothing that you're trying to hide. And there's all those fires happening with there's no liquidity, all problems, and you're calm because you know what you're building. You know that you guys are making sure that when the people will come to the platform, they will be able to join the platform. You want to make sure they're gonna have a great experience on the platform, so you don't worry about what people are doing. And I'm happy that is the case, because listen, you should be worried about making an as good platform as possible, and that's the worry that you guys should have. And I think you're doing a great.
We are looking 10 years down the line, Alex rightly said. We are looking 10 years down the line. We are literally amazed at the kind of value that the social platforms have been able to create out of thin air over the last couple of decades. There is no Web3 social media platform which is right now common across the globe. You go to any geography, you might find a lot of Web2 social companies, but not even a single Web3 social company. And it's only because it's very difficult. There has been network effects by the big companies. It's very difficult to come in and start competing. You don't have access to that much money, as these big companies will have, and they'll replicate features that you are trying to build on day one. If your app becomes successful, it's not easy, and that's why you don't see it. And that's why we have to be calm. We have to be composed. We have to look at what we have to achieve 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, and not think more on what is my problem, or some community member who is just trying to create troubles for everyone, not just in the Hotternaut ecosystem, but across the ICP community. I know that these people support a lot of projects. They might be getting money from somewhere else to sabotage us, but also at the same time, we are just thinking a couple of decades from here, how we can generate billions worth of value for everyone coming into the ecosystem, the Hotternaut ecosystem and the IC ecosystem today, as compared to rewarding people on day one, and then addressing concerns of people who are just trying to sabotage for their benefits.
Of course, and that is the mission that you guys have. You need to figure out how to make Hotternaut, as we mentioned, as good as possible. You work on that. You're doing a great job. I'm looking forward to see the updated UI and you know the easiness with which you can create an account and join the Hot or Not platform. And I think the next time we talk, I want us to be able to test that, you know, and to see an improvement in the content that you're being served, of an improvement in the content that people are posting on Hot or Not. And I'm looking forward to see how that evolves.
One last point that I want to make is, mark my words, we'll be better than YouTube Shorts for user onboarding, for the look and feel of the platform, for how smoothly you will be able to scroll. So the front end that we are creating in Rust is the world's first for any social media app. World's first. That's why you see another 6-7 team members which we had to onboard, all having great Rust background just to create something that we are developing. So the initial results already show that it's equivalent or better than YouTube Shorts. But again, mark my words, and we'll be better than whatsoever web platforms, web short video platforms that you find across. Will be better than that for sure.
We are making large promises, but just to put this in context, and another analogy for us to remember. So we're trying to plant the seeds that will grow into the trees for the future, right? So right now we're in the process of planting the seeds, and it's under the ground. Hence, you might not see a lot of the developments that we are working on. But as these get built out, and as we have these large trees grow out, we'll all bask in the shades of this.
It will come down to what are the advantages of being on a Web3 platform versus a Web2 platform, because technology right now, like, and onboarding, and I assume it's a lot easier to build a TikTok on Web2 and on the existing infrastructure than on Web3. So then you need to think, what is the unique thing that we can build on the blockchain that they cannot build and replicate instantly, like you mentioned, like in one day on their platform. And that is the puzzle that you guys need to fix. And we could talk for hours, right? We could talk for hours about this. Like, I feel like we barely scratched the surface, and we're already like 1.5 hours in. I would love to get you guys back on the show and see what else you guys did. If you have a message for the ICP community, you can say it now.
We definitely have a message. So for the entire ICP community, we are here in the longer run. We are in touch with Dfinity. We speak to the founder of Dfinity, which is Dominic, Jan, everyone in the team fairly closely. We talk to them almost more or less every week around what we are building, what we are doing, what we are up to. We are here again for decades, and not just for a few weeks or a few days. There'll just be a bit of time that will be needed for us to flourish all the seeds that we are putting in, and just plant all the trees that we are trying to maybe grow in the future. But it's just a bit of time that's required, and we are pretty sure that we'll be one of the biggest DApp in the social space, not just across the IC, but across the Web3 and across the entire internet. It's just a matter of few more weeks, months for the initial things to come out.
I agree 100%, and I think that hype can only take a project as far. And in the end, when the tide comes, or when the tide goes, however the saying is, we'll see who's swimming naked. And I personally don't think that Hot or Not is swimming naked. And I think that people will love to see what you guys are building. And you're building a real project. And I'm personally looking forward to see how it will turn out in the months to come. So guys, thank you very much for tuning in. It was a pleasure talking to you. And I'm waiting for you guys in 3 months, 4 months, whenever you want to come. Send me a message and I'll gladly have you guys back on the show.
Yeah, absolute pleasure, Alex. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak.
Very nice talking to you, Alex.
Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this episode and learned more about Hot or Not. Personally, I think this is one of the most exciting dApps on the Internet Computer Protocol. And what I'm most excited about is the team's long-term vision and how they see Hot or Not in like 5 years or 10 years down the line. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.